He wasn't a teacher, he was a guy who fixed things. HVAC units and stuck doors and leaky faucets, those he could handle. But this? This was his daughter's brain, the way she processed information, the way she saw the world. He couldn't fix that with a wrench and some WD-40. Still, he tried. Every night after dinner, they'd sit at the kitchen table with Mia's reading homework, and Adrian would watch her struggle through simple sentences that should have been easy for a second grader. Watch her confidence crumble a little more each time she stumbled. Watch her start to believe she wasn't smart, wasn't good enough, was somehow broken. "I'm stupid," she'd said one night, tears streaming down her face after a particularly hard session. "You're not stupid," Adrian had told her firmly, gathering her into his lap. "You're brilliant. Reading's just hard for you right now, and that's okay. We'll figure it out." But he didn't know how, and that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. One Saturday afternoon, needing to get out of the apartment and away from the reading books that had become sources of stress rather than joy, Adrian took Mia to the park near Helix's main campus. It was one of those rare, perfect days. Blue sky, light breeze, warm enough that Mia could run around in just a t-shirt and not freeze. She headed straight for the swings, her favorite, pumping her legs with fierce determination like she could launch herself into orbit if she just tried hard enough. Adrian sat on a bench nearby, half watching her and half watching nothing, letting his mind drift. Which is why he didn't notice someone approaching until they spoke. "She's got good form." He turned. Lena stood a few feet away, hands in her jacket pockets, looking almost hesitant. She was in running clothes, athletic leggings, zip-up jacket, hair pulled back in a ponytail, and there was color in her cheeks that might have been from exercise or might have been from something else. "Lena, hey." Adrian stood automatically. "What are you doing here?" "I run this trail sometimes." She gestured vaguely toward the path that looped around the park and into the woods beyond. "Saw you guys and thought I'd say hi. Hope that's not weird." "Not weird." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Mia swing higher and higher, her laughter carrying across the playground. "She's really great," Lena said quietly. "Yeah, she is." "Does she like school?" Adrian hesitated, not sure why the question felt heavier than it should. "Mostly. Reading's been tough lately." Something shifted in Lena's expression. Just slightly. A tightening around her eyes. "Tough how?" "She gets frustrated, mixes letters up. Her teacher says it's normal, just needs practice, but..." He shrugged, feeling inadequate even talking about it. "I don't know. Feels like more than that sometimes." Lena was quiet for a long moment, watching Mia swing. When she spoke again, her voice was careful, measured, like she was picking her way through a minefield. "Has anyone tested her for dyslexia?" Adrian looked at her sharply. "What?" "It's just what you're describing. It sounds familiar." "You think she has dyslexia?" "I don't know. I'm not qualified to diagnose anything, but..." Lena paused, and Adrian could see her making some kind of decision. "I had it. Growing up, still do, technically. And what you're describing, the letter reversals, the frustration, the feeling like she should be able to do something but can't, that was me." Adrian stared at her. "You have dyslexia?" "Yeah. But you're..." He gestured vaguely, encompassing her whole being. "You're a designer. You work with words and images and presentations all day." "Because I learned how, but it took time and help, and a lot of people telling me I wasn't stupid even when I felt like I was." She glanced at Mia, then back at Adrian. "If you want, I could spend some time with her, just to see. No pressure. I'm not a specialist or anything, but I know some techniques that helped me. Might help her too." Adrian didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to grab onto this lifeline with both hands. Part of him felt like he was admitting defeat, like accepting help meant he couldn't handle it himself, couldn't be enough for his own daughter. "I don't want to put you out," he said finally. "You're not." "Lena." "Adrian." She looked at him directly, and there was something in her eyes he hadn't seen before, something vulnerable. "Let me help, please." And in that moment, Adrian understood that this wasn't just about Mia. This was about Lena too, about whatever she'd gone through as a kid, whatever battles she'd fought to get where she was, about her seeing something of herself in his daughter and wanting to make it easier for someone else. Okay, he said softly. Yeah, okay. Lena's whole face lit up. A real smile, genuine and unguarded, and it completely transformed her. Good. That's good. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might be terrible at this. I doubt that. They exchanged numbers. Adrian had to pull out his phone and fumble with it because his hands were suddenly clumsy, and made plans for Lena to come by the following week. As she jogged away, back to her run, Adrian sat back down on the bench and watched Mia swing. Maybe, he thought, maybe this could actually help. And maybe, though he wasn't ready to examine this thought too closely, maybe it was okay to let someone in, to not do everything alone. Maybe. The first session happened on a Wednesday evening, 4 days after the park. Lena showed up at Adrian's apartment at 6:30, right on time, carrying a canvas bag that looked like it weighed more than she did. Adrian opened the door and found her standing there looking nervous in a way he'd never seen her look at work, like she was second-guessing this entire idea. Hey, she said. I brought some stuff. Hope that's okay. Course it is. Come in. The apartment was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, a living room that opened into a kitchen barely big enough to qualify as a kitchen, furniture that had seen better days but was comfortable enough. Mia's artwork covered the refrigerator. A stack of library books teetered on the coffee table. Dishes from dinner still sat in the sink because Adrian had been trying to coax Mia into cleaning her room and had lost track of time. Lena took it all in without comment, and Adrian tried not to feel self-conscious about the worn couch or the crack in the ceiling he kept meaning to patch. Mia's in her room, he said. Fair warning, she's shy around new people sometimes. That's okay. We can take it slow. But when Adrian knocked on Mia's door and told her Lena was here, his daughter came barreling out like she'd been shot from a cannon, wearing mismatched socks and a shirt with a stegosaurus on it that was rapidly becoming too small. Hi, Mia said, skidding to a stop in front of Lena. Lena crouched down, slow, still protecting those ribs even though they had to be mostly healed by now, and smiled. Hi, Mia. Remember me? You're the lady my dad saved from the dragon. That's me. Are you here to help me read? If you want me to. Mia chewed her bottom lip, thinking about it, then nodded. Okay, but I'm not very good. That's okay, Lena said gently. I wasn't either when I was your age. Really? Really? That seemed to settle something for Mia. She grabbed Lena's hand and dragged her toward the living room, chattering about the dinosaur book she'd been trying to read, and how some of the words were too squiggly. Adrian followed, watching this unfold with something tight in his chest that might have been gratitude or might have been something else entirely. Lena sat up on the floor, not the couch, the floor, cross-legged like a kid herself, and started pulling things out of her bag. Colorful letter tiles, flashcards with pictures, a few books that looked well-loved and slightly battered, and something that looked like a clear plastic sheet with colored overlays. What's that? Mia asked, pointing. Reading rulers. They help your eyes track the words better. We can try different colors and see if any of them make it easier. Lena held up a blue one, then a yellow one. Some people's brains like certain colors more than others. My brain likes purple. Then let's start with purple. Adrian stood in the kitchen doorway, pretending to do dishes, but really just watching. Watching Lena explain things in simple terms without talking down to Mia. Watching his daughter's face light up when one of the colored overlays actually seemed to help. Watching them build towers out of letter tiles and laugh when they fell over. At one point, Mia stumbled over the word friend 3 times in a row, and her face started to crumple. Adrian tensed, ready to intervene, but Lena got there first. Hey, she said softly. Look at me. Mia looked up, eyes already watering. You know what I used to do when a word was being mean to me? Mia shook her head. I'd tell it I was the boss, not it, out loud, like this. Lena pointed at the word on the flashcard. You don't get to boss me around, friend. I'm in charge here. Mia giggled despite herself. That's silly. Maybe. But it works. Try it. You don't get to boss me around, friend, Mia repeated, her voice small but determined. I'm in charge. Louder. I'm in charge. There you go. Now read it. Mia looked at the word, sounded it out slowly. Friend, friend? Perfect. I did it. You did. Adrian had to turn away, pretend he was really focused on scrubbing a plate that was already clean, because something about watching his daughter succeed, watching her be encouraged instead of pitied, hit him harder than he'd expected. They worked for 45 minutes. When Lena finally started packing up, Mia was yawning but smiling, and that was more than Adrian could have asked for. Same time next week? Lena asked as Adrian walked her to the door. If you're sure. I'm sure. Lena, thank you. Really. She looked at him, and there was something soft in her expression, something open. She's a great kid, Adrian, and she's not stupid. Her brain just works differently. That's not a bad thing. I know. I want her to know that too. She will. It just takes time. Adrian nodded, not trusting himself to say anything else. Lena gave him a small smile, waved to Mia, who was peeking around the corner, and left. After she was gone, Adrian sat on the couch, and Mia climbed into his lap, already half asleep. I like her, Daddy, she mumbled. Me too, Bug. She's nice, and she gets it. Gets what? The squiggly words. Adrian kissed the top of her head. Yeah, she does. Folks. Lena came back the following Wednesday, and the Wednesday after that. By the fourth session, it had stopped feeling like an obligation and started feeling like routine, like something they all looked forward to. Adrian would get home from work, throw together something quick for dinner, usually pasta or grilled cheese or something from the rotation of 6 meals he could actually cook without burning, and then Lena would show up with her bag of tools and that tentative smile she always wore when Mia opened the door. They'd work in the living room while Adrian cleaned up or paid bills or pretended to do literally anything other than eavesdrop on their sessions. But he couldn't help it. Couldn't help listening to the way Lena explained things, patient and clear. Couldn't help noticing the way Mia's confidence was building, week by week, word by word. One evening, about 6 weeks into this new routine, Lena stayed after the session ended. Mia had gone to brush her teeth and get ready for bed, and Lena was packing up slower than usual, like she wasn't in a hurry to leave. Coffee? Adrian offered. Fair warning, it's not great. Better than the stuff at work? Marginally. Sold. They sat at the kitchen table, cups of mediocre coffee between them, and for a while neither of them said anything. It was comfortable, though, the kind of silence that didn't need filling. She's doing really well, Lena said eventually, like genuinely. I think she should get tested officially, but her strategies are solid. She's already adapting. That's all you. That's her. I'm just giving her tools. Still. Adrian turned his cup in his hands. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. I want to. Lena met his eyes across the table. Then don't give up on her. That's all the thanks I need. Just keep believing she's capable, even when it's hard. I won't. Good. Something passed between them then, something neither of them acknowledged but both felt. Adrian looked away first, taking a sip of coffee that had already gone lukewarm. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Why are you doing this? Really? Lena was quiet for a moment, and Adrian thought maybe he'd overstepped. But then she spoke, her voice low and careful. Because no one did it for me. Not at first anyway. I spent years thinking I was broken, dumb, less than everyone else. She stared at her coffee. By the time someone finally figured out what was going on and got me help, I'd already internalized all of it, already decided I had to work twice as hard as everyone else just to be half as good. That's not true. I know that now. But the kid version of me didn't. She looked up at him. I don't want Mia to feel that way. Not if I can help it. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain that her honesty had just cracked something open in him, some wall he'd been maintaining without even realizing it. For what it's worth, he said finally, you're not half as good as everyone else. You're better. Lena blinked, surprised, then smiled, small but real. You don't know that. I've seen your work. The mock-ups in your office. You're brilliant. I work hard. Those aren't mutually exclusive. She ducked her head, and Adrian could have sworn she was blushing slightly. Thanks. Just telling the truth. They sat there a while longer, talking about nothing important. Work gossip, the weather, a movie Lena had seen that Adrian hadn't heard of. Easy conversation, the kind that flowed without effort. When Lena finally left, well past 9, Adrian stood in the doorway watching her walk to her car and wondering when exactly this had stopped being about Mia's reading lessons and started being about something else. 2 weeks later, Helix announced a company-wide initiative. Some corporate responsibility thing about giving back to the community, partnering with local schools, making a difference. The usual PR-friendly language that sounded good in press releases and meant very little in practice. Except this time, Lena was heading it up. Adrian heard about it through Mark, who mentioned it offhand during a facilities meeting that Adrian was only half paying attention to. Lena Hart's running point on the education outreach program, Mark said, scrolling through some email on his tablet. Needs volunteers. You should sign up, Cole. You've got a kid. You'd be good at it. Adrian made a non-committal sound, but later that day he found himself on the 4th floor, standing outside the design lab where Lena had commandeered a conference room and covered the walls in charts and timelines and color-coded lists. She looked up when he knocked, surprise flickering across her face. Adrian, hey! Hey, heard about your project. Word travels fast. Mark mentioned it, said you need volunteers. Lena leaned back against the table, arms crossed. She looked tired, more tired than usual, which was saying something. I do. But you don't have to. I want to. You don't even know what it is yet. So tell me. She studied him for a second, like she was trying to figure out if he was serious. Then she pushed off the table and grabbed a folder, flipping it open. Partnering with 3 elementary schools in the district, providing tutoring support, reading resources, assistive technology for kids who need it, focusing on underserved populations, kids who fall through the cracks. She glanced up. Kids like Mia, like I was. Sounds good. It's a lot of work. After hours, weekends sometimes. And it's... She hesitated. It matters to me, a lot. So I'm going to be intense about it. Adrian almost smiled. You're intense about everything. Is that a bad thing? No, it's honest. Lena looked at him, and something in her expression softened. You really want to help? I really do. Okay then. She handed him the folder. Read through this. Next planning meeting's Thursday at 6, conference room B. I'll be there. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you. He nodded and left before the conversation could get any heavier, but walking back to the maintenance office, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose, maybe. Or just the satisfaction of doing something that mattered instead of just fixing broken things and collecting a paycheck. Quote, the planning meetings became routine too. Every Thursday evening, a group of maybe 8 or 9 people would gather in conference room B, designers, engineers, a couple of HR folks, Adrian, and hash out logistics. Lena ran the meetings with the same precision she brought to everything else, but there was a passion underneath it that made people want to keep up. Adrian mostly listened at first, contributing when it made sense, but mostly just watching Lena work. Watching her light up when someone had a good idea. Watching her shut down suggestions that sounded nice but wouldn't actually help anyone. Watching her fight for resources and funding like she was personally invested in every single kid they were trying to reach. After one particularly long meeting that had run until almost 8, everyone else had filed out, but Adrian stayed behind, helping Lena clean up the whiteboards and gather scattered papers. You don't have to do that, she said. I know. But you're doing it anyway. Seems to be a pattern with us. She smiled at that. I guess it is. They worked in silence for a few minutes, erasing marker and stacking chairs. Then Lena spoke without looking at him. I saw something today that made me think of Mia. Adrian glanced over. Yeah? One of the schools we're partnering with has this program. Specialized assessment for learning differences, early intervention, personalized learning plans. It's free for district families. She finally looked at him. I could get Mia in, if you want. Adrian stopped what he was doing. Seriously? Seriously. The wait list is usually months long, but I know the coordinator. I could make a call. Lena, I can't ask you to... You're not asking. I'm offering. She set down the paper she'd been holding. Look, you can say no. I won't be offended, but Mia deserves to know exactly what she's dealing with and how to work with it. This program can give her that. Adrian felt something tighten in his throat. Why are you doing all this? I told you. No, I mean, he struggled to find the words. You barely know us. You don't owe us anything, but you keep showing up, keep helping, keep going out of your way. Why? Lena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Because I know what it's like to feel different, to struggle with something everyone else finds easy. And I know what it's like when someone finally sees you and says, "You're not broken, you just need different tools." She met his eyes. Your daughter is smart and funny and kind. She deserves every chance to succeed. If I can give her that, why wouldn't I? Adrian didn't have an answer for that. Didn't have words for the gratitude or the guilt or the something else that was tangled up in his chest, making it hard to breathe. Thank you, he said finally. It felt inadequate, but it was all he had. You're welcome, Erupts. Mia got the assessment 2 weeks later. Adrian took the morning off work and sat in a waiting room at the district education center while his daughter spent 3 hours with specialists who tested her reading, her processing speed, her memory, her everything. Lena had offered to come, but Adrian had said no. This felt too personal, too raw. He needed to do it alone. Except when it was over and the coordinator called him back into the office to discuss results, Adrian found himself wishing Lena was there after all. Wishing someone who understood this was sitting next to him while the coordinator explained in calm, professional terms that yes, Mia had dyslexia, moderate severity, but very treatable with the right interventions. She's actually quite bright, the coordinator said, showing Adrian charts and graphs he didn't fully understand. Her verbal comprehension is above average. Her reasoning skills are strong. The dyslexia is just affecting her reading fluency and her ability to decode quickly. With support, she'll do fine. Adrian nodded, trying to process it all, trying to figure out what he was supposed to feel. Relief that they had answers, fear about what it meant, guilt that he hadn't caught it sooner. What happens now, he asked. We set up an IEP, Individualized Education Plan. Work with her school to implement accommodations, extra time on tests, audiobooks, specialized instruction. She'll stay in her regular classroom but get additional support. Okay. Mr. Cole. The coordinator leaned forward slightly. This isn't a bad thing. Dyslexia doesn't mean she can't succeed. It just means she'll get there differently. Right. But driving home with Mia buckled in the back seat, humming to herself and completely unbothered by the morning's events, Adrian felt the weight of it settle on him. His daughter had a learning disability. She would struggle with things other kids didn't struggle with. She would have to work harder, advocate for herself, navigate a system that wasn't designed for brains like hers. And he couldn't fix it. That night, after Mia was asleep, Adrian sat on his couch staring at the assessment report and feeling helpless in a way he hadn't felt since she was a baby, and he'd been terrified of doing everything wrong. His phone buzzed, a text from Lena. How'd it go? He stared at the message for a long time before responding. Dyslexia, moderate. They're setting up an IEP. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. How are you doing? Such a simple question. But it cracked something in him. He called her without thinking about it, without planning what to say. She answered on the second ring. Hey, hey. His voice sounded rough even to his own ears. You okay? Yeah. No, I don't know. He rubbed his face with his free hand. They said she'll be fine with support, that it's treatable, but I just feel like you failed her? Adrian went quiet. Yeah. You didn't. I should have caught it sooner. Adrian, you caught it. A lot of parents don't. You saw she was struggling and you got her help. That's what matters. I just want her to have it easier than you did? He hadn't meant to say that. Hadn't meant to let that slip. But Lena had somehow known anyway. My dad left when I was 8, Adrian said quietly. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us fed. I wasn't stupid, but school was hard and no one had time to figure out why. So I just pushed through, barely graduated, figured I wasn't college material. He paused. I don't want that for Mia. I want her to know she's capable of anything. She will know that, because you're making sure she knows it. Lena's voice was gentle. You're a good dad, Adrian. You're doing everything right. Doesn't feel like it. It never does. But trust me, you are. They stayed on the phone for another 20 minutes, talking about nothing and everything. About Mia's assessment, about Lena's week, about the outreach program. Easy conversation that made Adrian's chest feel less tight. When they finally hung up, it was past 11 and Adrian should have been exhausted. But instead he felt something else, something lighter, like maybe he wasn't doing this alone after all. Tutors. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm. Lena kept coming over for reading sessions with Mia, but now they had actual strategies from the assessment, actual tools that were proven to work. Mia's school implemented her IEP, and slowly, so slowly it was almost imperceptible at first, things started to improve. Mia stopped crying over homework, started reading for fun again, choosing books she actually wanted to read instead of books she thought she should read, started believing she wasn't stupid. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Adrian stopped seeing Lena as just someone helping his daughter and started seeing her as something else, someone he looked forward to seeing, someone whose opinion mattered, someone who made his small apartment feel less small just by being in it. He didn't know when exactly it shifted. Maybe it was the night she stayed late and ended up eating leftover pizza with them while Mia told elaborate stories about her day. Maybe it was the time he ran into her at the grocery store and they ended up wandering the aisles together, her cart full of frozen meals and his full of kid-friendly staples, talking about nothing important. Maybe it had been shifting all along and he was just now letting himself notice. One Saturday morning, Adrian got a text from Lena. "Are you and Mia free this afternoon?" He stared at his phone, trying to decode the subtext. "Depends." "Why?" "There's a thing. At the Science Museum. Thought Mia might like it." "What kind of thing?" "Dinosaur exhibit. Interactive. I got tickets." Adrian smiled despite himself. "She's going to lose her mind." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." They met at the museum at 2. Mia spotted Lena before Adrian did and went running, practically tackling her in a hug that Lena returned with surprising enthusiasm. "Hi," Mia said breathlessly. "Daddy says there are dinosaurs." "So many dinosaurs," Lena confirmed. "Ready?" "Yes!" Adrian had been to this museum before. Field trips, rainy day activities, the occasional weekend when he needed to get Mia out of the apartment. But he'd never seen it through Lena's eyes. She was as excited as Mia, pointing out details Adrian would have missed, reading every placard, asking questions that made Mia think. At one point, they stopped in front of a massive T-Rex skeleton, and Mia was rattling off facts she'd learned from various books and documentaries, and Lena was listening with genuine interest, and Adrian just watched them. Watched his daughter be confident and animated and completely herself. Watched Lena look at Mia like she was the most fascinating person in the world. "You okay?" Lena asked, catching him staring. "Yeah," Adrian said. "Just thanks for this." "Are you kidding? This is the most fun I've had in months. You need to get out more." "Probably." They grabbed lunch in the museum cafe, overpriced sandwiches and chips that Mia declared were the best ever, and then spent another hour in the gift shop where Adrian tried and failed to convince his daughter she didn't need the giant plush Brachiosaurus. Lena intervened. "What if we went halves? You don't have to." "I want to." So Mia got her dinosaur, and Adrian got the feeling that this was becoming something he couldn't name, but also couldn't deny anymore. Walking back to the parking lot, Mia between them holding each of their hands, Adrian felt something settle in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to contentment. "This was nice," Lena said softly. "Yeah, it was. We should do it again sometime." "Okay." Mia looked up at both of them, grinning. "Can Lena come to my birthday?" Adrian blinked. "Bug, your birthday's not for 3 months." "I know, but can she?" Lena laughed. "If your dad says it's okay, I'd love to." "Dad?" Adrian looked at Lena, found her watching him with something uncertain in her eyes. Like she wasn't sure if she was overstepping, like she wanted to be invited but wouldn't push. "Yeah," he said. "Of course you can come." Mia cheered and Lena smiled, and Adrian tried not to think too hard about what any of this meant. But that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Mia slept down the hall clutching her new dinosaur, Adrian couldn't stop thinking about it. He liked Lena. More than liked her, if he was being honest with himself. Liked the way she talked to Mia like an actual person, instead of a cute accessory. Liked the way she fought for things she believed in. Liked the way she'd somehow become part of his and Mia's routine without either of them noticing until she was already there. The problem was he had no idea if she felt the same way. And even if she did, what then? She was driven, ambitious, clearly going places. He was a maintenance guy with a second-grade daughter and a life that was structured entirely around making sure that daughter was okay. They didn't make sense on paper, except they did everywhere else. Adrian sighed, rolled over, tried to sleep, but his mind kept circling back to the way Lena had looked at the museum. Happy, relaxed. Like she'd forgotten to be the person who was always working, always proving something, and had just been herself instead. He wanted to see that version of her more often. He wanted a lot of things he probably shouldn't want. The following Thursday, at the usual planning meeting, Lena was distracted. Adrian noticed it immediately. The way she kept checking her phone, the way her responses were shorter than usual, the way she seemed to be somewhere else even when she was sitting right there. After the meeting, when everyone else had left, he hung back. "You good?" he asked. Lena looked up from her laptop, startled. "What?" "Yeah, fine." "You sure? You seemed off tonight." She hesitated, then closed the laptop. "Just work stuff. The product launch is coming up and it's a lot." "Anything I can do?" "Not unless you've suddenly learned advanced UI design." "Fresh out." She almost smiled. "Then no, but thanks." Adrian should have left it there, should have said goodnight and gone home. But something made him stay. "Lena." "Yeah?" "When's the last time you took a break? Like a real one?" "I don't know. Why?" "Because you're running yourself into the ground, and I can see it." She bristled slightly. "I'm fine." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." "Is it?" They looked at each other across the conference table, and Adrian could see her walls going up, see her retreating into that place where she didn't need anyone and didn't want help and could handle everything herself. "I'm just saying," he continued carefully, "you don't have to do everything alone. It's okay to slow down sometimes." "I can't slow down. Not right now." "Why not?" "Because—" She stopped herself, jaw tight. "Because if I do, people will think I can't handle it, that I'm not good enough, that they made a mistake bringing me here. No one thinks that. You don't know that." "I do, actually. I've heard people talk about you. You're the best designer they have." Lena looked away. "I have to prove it, every single day, because the second I slip, the second I'm not perfect." "No one's perfect. I have to be." The words hung in the air between them, and Adrian suddenly understood. Understood that this wasn't about the job or the launch or even the outreach program. This was about something deeper, something that had been driving her for years. "That's exhausting," he said quietly. "Yeah, it is. So why do it?" Lena was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I don't know how to be any other way." Adrian wanted to argue with her, wanted to tell her she was more than her achievements, more than her productivity, more than the version of herself she presented to the world. But he knew she wouldn't hear it, not right now, not when she was this deep in whatever she was dealing with. So instead he just said, "Okay." She looked at him, surprised. "Okay? Okay, I get it, but—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "When you're ready to slow down, even just for an hour, let me know. We can grab coffee or something, no pressure." Lena studied his face like she was trying to figure out if he was serious, then nodded slowly. "Okay, yeah, maybe." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Adrian would take it. The product launch happened 3 weeks later on a Tuesday afternoon. The whole company gathered in the main conference hall. Executives giving speeches about innovation and market disruption and other corporate buzzwords that made Adrian's eyes glaze over. But when Lena took the stage to present the actual product, some kind of adaptive interface software that Adrian didn't fully understand but could tell was impressive based on everyone's reactions, he paid attention. She was brilliant, confident, articulate, commanding the room in a way that made it impossible to look away. This was her element, and she owned it completely. After the presentation, there was a reception, champagne and catering, and people congratulating Lena, shaking her hand, telling her how amazing she was. Adrian watched from the back of the room, feeling oddly out of place in his work uniform while everyone else was in business casual. He was about to leave when Lena caught his eye across the crowd. She excused herself from whatever conversation she was having and made her way over. "Hey, she said, slightly breathless. You came. Of course I did. You crushed it. Thanks. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. There are people I should talk to. Networking and all that. Go, do your thing. She hesitated. Will you still be here in an hour? Probably not. Gotta pick up Mia. Right, of course. They stood there awkwardly for a second, the noise of the reception swirling around them. Then Lena did something Adrian didn't expect. She squeezed his hand, quick and almost furtive, before disappearing back into the crowd. Adrian left feeling like he'd just witnessed something important but couldn't quite name what it was. Semantic. That night, well past 10, his phone rang. Lena. Hey, he answered. Congrats again on… Can I come over? Adrian sat up from where he'd been half dozing on the couch. Now? Yeah, I know it's late, She paused. Never mind, it's stupid. It's not stupid. Come over. You sure? I'm sure. She showed up 20 minutes later, still in her presentation clothes. Black pants, silk blouse. Heels she immediately kicked off the second she was inside. She looked wrung out, like the adrenaline had finally worn off and left her hollow. You okay? Adrian asked. Not really. Want to talk about it? Not really. Want coffee? Please. They sat at his kitchen table, their usual spot now, and Lena wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. It went well, she said finally. The launch. Everyone loved it. My boss said it was the best product rollout they'd had in years. That's great. It is. It's exactly what I wanted. She stared into her coffee. So why do I feel so empty? Adrian didn't have an answer for that. He waited, giving her space to work through whatever she needed to work through. I've been working toward this for months, Lena continued. Nights, weekends, every spare minute. And now it's done and I should feel proud or accomplished or something. But instead I just feel… She shook her head. Tired. Really tired. That makes sense. Does it? You've been running on fumes for weeks. Your body's probably just catching up. Maybe. She looked at him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever feel like you're performing, like you're playing a role, and if you stop even for a second, everyone will see through it? Adrian thought about that. Sometimes. When Mia was a baby and I had no idea what I was doing, I felt like that every day. Like I was pretending to be a dad and eventually someone would figure out I was faking it. What changed? I stopped pretending and just did it. Messed up a lot. Still do. But Mia's okay, so I guess I'm doing something right. Lena smiled sadly. I don't know how to stop pretending. What are you pretending? That I have it all together. That I'm not terrified all the time. That I'm… She stopped herself. That you're what? That I'm enough. The words hit harder than Adrian expected. He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. You are enough, he said firmly. You're more than enough. You don't know that. I do. She looked at their hands, then up at him, and something in her expression cracked. Why are you so nice to me? Because you deserve it. I don't… Lena. Adrian squeezed her hand gently. You showed up for my daughter when you didn't have to. You've helped more kids through that outreach program than you'll probably ever know about. You built something amazing and presented it to a room full of people today. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to not have all the answers. You're allowed to be human. Her eyes were bright, and Adrian realized with a start that she was fighting tears. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. Then figure it out. But you don't have to figure it out alone. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she turned her hand over and laced her fingers through his, and they sat there in the quiet kitchen, connected by more than just touch. Thank you, Lena said eventually. For what? For this. For… She gestured vaguely. Not running away when I show up at your door having a crisis. Anytime you want to have a crisis, my door's open. She laughed. A real one. Wet and shaky but genuine. That's a dangerous offer. I mean it. They stayed like that until Lena's coffee went cold and the night deepened around them. And when she finally left, Adrian stood in the doorway watching her drive away and knew with absolute certainty that whatever this was between them, It had shifted into something neither of them could pretend wasn't happening anymore. The shift happened quietly, over the course of weeks, where neither of them acknowledged it, but both felt it. Lena started showing up more often, not just for Mia's sessions, but for dinner sometimes, or to watch a movie after Mia went to bed, or just because she'd had a rough day and Adrian's apartment had become the place she went when she needed to remember what normal felt like. Adrian didn't mind. If anything, he looked forward to it. Looked forward to the way she'd kick off her shoes and curl up on his worn couch like she belonged there. Looked forward to the easy conversations that stretched into hours without either of them noticing. Looked forward to the version of Lena that only seemed to exist within these walls. Softer, less guarded, more herself. Mia adored her. That was obvious from the way she'd light up whenever Lena arrived, from the way she'd drag Lena into whatever game or project or imaginary scenario she'd been constructing. And Lena met her there every time, playing along with a sincerity that made Adrian's chest ache. One Friday evening, about 3 months after the product launch, Adrian came home to find Lena already there. Mia had let her in with the spare key Adrian had given her weeks ago for the tutoring sessions, and they were in the middle of building what appeared to be an elaborate blanket fort in the living room. "Hey," Adrian said, setting down his work bag. "When did this happen?" "Lena came early," Mia announced from inside the fort. "And we decided we needed a castle." "Obviously," Adrian said, deadpan. Lena poked her head out, hair escaping from its usual neat style, a clothespin in her teeth. She took it out. "Hope this is okay." She had a vision. "It's fine. Just warning you, visions with Mia usually get complicated." "I'm learning that." They ordered pizza for dinner and ate it inside the fort, Mia between them, telling stories about her day that wandered through at least 6 different topics without any clear connection. After she'd gone to bed, protesting the whole way because she wanted to stay up with the grown-ups, Adrian and Lena collapsed the fort and folded blankets in comfortable silence. "She's doing really well in school," Lena said. "Her teacher sent me an update." Adrian looked up, surprised. "She's sending you updates?" "I asked to be copied. For the program. Hope that's okay." "Yeah, of course." He set a blanket on the couch. "What'd she say?" "Mia's reading at grade level now. Still needs accommodations, but she's keeping up, even enjoying it." Adrian felt something warm spread through his chest. That's really good. It's better than good. She's thriving. Because of you. Because of her. I just gave her tools." "Lena, what?" "Adrian." She looked at him directly. "Take the win. Your daughter is doing great. That's what matters." He wanted to argue, wanted to give credit where it was due, but the look on her face told him she wasn't going to accept it, so he just nodded. They settled on the couch, some documentary playing on the TV that neither of them was really watching. Lena had her feet tucked under her, head resting against the back cushion, and Adrian tried not to notice how right this felt, how easy. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said after a while. "Sure." "Why maintenance? You're smart, you're good with people, you could do anything." Adrian considered the question. "Mia's mom left when she was 6 months old, just left. Decided she wasn't ready to be a parent and walked away." He kept his voice neutral, factual. It had been 7 years and the anger had long since burned out, leaving just truth. "I was working construction then. Long hours, unpredictable schedule. Couldn't do that and raise a baby alone. So I found something stable, something with benefits and regular hours and the ability to pick up my kid from school." "That's," Lena started, then stopped. "What?" "That's really admirable." "It's just being a parent. Not everyone would have done that. A lot of people would have found someone else to take her." "She's my daughter." "I know, but still." Lena was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever regret it? Giving up construction?" Adrian thought about that. "No, I liked building things, but I love being there for Mia more. It's not even a contest." "You're a good dad." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." They fell quiet again, but it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence Adrian had come to associate with Lena. Comfortable, easy, like they'd known each other longer than just a few months. "What about you?" he asked. "Why design?" "Honestly?" "Because I'm good at it." She said it without arrogance, just matter of fact. "And because it was the one thing in school I didn't have to fight with. Words were hard, reading was hard, tests were torture. But design, spatial thinking, visual problem solving, that just made sense. It was the only place I felt smart. You are smart. Now I know that. But when you're a kid struggling to read basic sentences while everyone else is flying through chapter books, you don't feel smart. You feel broken. She picked at a loose thread on the couch cushion. Design was proof I wasn't. Adrian wanted to say something meaningful, something that would convey how much he understood that need to prove yourself. But before he could find the words, Lena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her whole demeanor changed, stiffened. "I should take this," she said, standing quickly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just work thing. Give me a minute." She disappeared into the kitchen, and Adrian could hear her voice through the wall, professional and clipped. He couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. This wasn't a friendly call. When she came back 10 minutes later, she looked exhausted. "Sorry about that," she said, grabbing her jacket. "You leaving?" "Yeah, something came up." Adrian stood. "Lena, what's going on?" "Nothing, just work stuff. The program, there's—" She shook her head. "It's complicated." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Okay." She paused at the door, hand on the knob, and for a second Adrian thought she was going to say something, but she just gave him a tight smile and left. Adrian stood there for a long moment after she was gone, staring at the closed door and trying to shake the feeling that something had just shifted, and not in a good way. The next week, Lena canceled Tuesday's session with Mia, then Thursday's planning meeting. Adrian texted asking if everything was okay and got back a brief "fine," just busy, that told him absolutely nothing. By the following Monday, he was worried enough to seek her out at work. He found her in the design lab, surrounded by papers, and looking like she hadn't slept in days. "Hey," he said from the doorway. She looked up and something flashed across her face, surprise maybe, or guilt. "Adrian? Hi. You avoiding me?" "What? No, I've just been busy." "Yeah, you said." He stepped into the room. "What's going on?" Lena glanced around like she was checking to see if anyone else was listening. Then she stood, grabbed her tablet, and walked past him. "Not here. Come on." He followed her to one of the small conference rooms on the third floor, the ones nobody used because the ventilation was terrible. She closed the door behind them. "There's a problem with the outreach program," she said without preamble. "What kind of problem?" "Budget. The company's cutting funding. Not completely, but enough that we can't do what we planned. No specialized assessments for new kids, reduced tutoring hours, no assistive technology purchases." She set the tablet down hard. "Basically, everything that makes it actually useful is getting axed." Adrian felt something cold settle in his stomach. Why? Because it's not bringing in revenue. Because some executive decided community outreach looks good in press releases but doesn't justify the expense. Take your pick. "That's the infuriating?" "Yeah," Lena paced the small room. "I've been fighting it all week, presenting data, showing impact, proving it's worth the investment. But they don't care. The decision's made." "So what happens now?" "I scale it back. Keep the parts they'll still fund. Disappoint a lot of kids who are counting on help they're not going to get." Adrian watched her pace, watched the frustration radiating off her, and understood why she'd been distant. This wasn't just a work setback for her. This was personal. "There has to be something you can do," he said. "There isn't. I've tried everything." "What about going over their heads, higher up the chain?" "I did. Got shut down, politely but firmly." "External funding? Grants? Takes months to secure, and we need the money now." She stopped pacing, leaned against the wall. "I'm sorry, Adrian. I know Mia was part of this program. She'll still have her IEP at school, but the extra support through Helix, I'm not worried about Mia. She's okay." He crossed his arms. "I'm worried about you." Lena looked at him surprised. "What? You look like you haven't slept in a week. You're killing yourself over this." "Because it matters." "I know it does. But you can't save everyone." "I can try." "Lena, what do you want me to say?" Her voice rose slightly. "That I should just accept it? Move on? Let those kids down because some executive decided they're not worth the expense? No. But I also don't want you to burn yourself out fighting a battle you can't win." So I should just give up? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Adrian took a breath, choosing his words carefully. I'm saying you can't control everything. Sometimes things don't work out the way you want, and it's not your fault. Lena stared at him, and he watched something in her expression harden. You don't get it. Get what? This is what I do. I fix things. I solve problems. If I can't make this work, then what's the point of any of it? The point is you tried. You helped kids who needed it. That still matters even if... Don't. She held up a hand. Don't give me the "it's the effort that counts" speech. I don't need platitudes. I need to get back to work. She grabbed her tablet and moved toward the door. Adrian caught her arm gently. Lena, wait. Let go. He did, immediately, but he didn't move. You don't have to handle this alone. Yes, I do. Because no one else is going to fix it. She met his eyes, and he could see the wall going back up brick by brick. Thanks for your concern, but I'm fine. You're not fine. I will be. She left before he could respond, and Adrian stood there in the empty conference room feeling like he'd just made things worse somehow. Lena didn't come over that week, or the next. She responded to Adrian's texts but kept them brief, professional. When he saw her at work, she was polite but distant. The easy warmth that had developed between them was gone, replaced by something cold and careful. Mia noticed. Is Lena mad at us? She asked one night at dinner. No, Bug, she's just busy with work. But she always came before, even when she was busy. Adrian didn't have a good answer for that. Sometimes grown-ups need space. Why? Because they're dealing with stuff that's hard. We could help. It's not that kind of stuff. Mia frowned, pushing peas around her plate. I miss her. Yeah, Adrian said quietly. Me too. He tried to give Lena space, tried to respect whatever she was going through, but by the third week he was done trying. He showed up at her apartment on a Saturday morning with coffee and bagels, prepared to camp out until she talked to him. She answered the door in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair in a messy bun, looking surprised to see him. Adrian, what are you doing here? Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was exactly what he'd expected. Modern, minimalist, everything in its place except for the coffee table, which was buried under work documents, and a laptop that was definitely still on. You working? He asked, though the answer was obvious. It's Saturday. I know what day it is. Then why are you here? Adrian set the coffee and bagels on the kitchen counter. Because you've been avoiding me for 3 weeks, and I want to know why. I'm not avoiding you. Lena. She sighed, ran a hand over her face. I've been busy. With what? The program you can't control anymore? That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true, isn't it? You're still trying to fix something that's broken and beating yourself up because you can't. What do you want me to do? Just quit? No, I want you to stop punishing yourself and stop pushing away people who care about you. Lena went very still. What? You heard me. Adrian, Mia asks about you every day. She thinks she did something wrong, that you don't want to see her anymore. Guilt flashed across Lena's face. That's not... I would never... Then talk to me. Tell me what's really going on. She was quiet for a long time, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something in. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. I thought I could make a difference, really change things, and I failed. You didn't fail. Yes, I did. I couldn't get them to keep the funding. I couldn't save the program. I couldn't... Her voice cracked. I couldn't be enough. And there it was, the heart of it. Adrian crossed the room, stood in front of her. You are enough, he said firmly. The fact that the company made a bad decision doesn't change that. But I should have... What? Worked harder? Fought better? Lena, you did everything you could. Sometimes that's not enough to change the outcome, but it doesn't mean you weren't enough. Then why does it feel like I wasn't? Adrian didn't have an answer for that. So instead he pulled her into a hug, careful and tentative at first, waiting to see if she'd push him away. She didn't. She leaned into him, head against his chest, and he could feel her trembling slightly. So tired, she whispered. I know. I don't know how to stop trying. You don't have to stop. You just have to let other people help carry it sometimes. She pulled back slightly, looked up at him. I don't know how to do that. Learn. Adrian, I'm serious. Let people in. Let me in. He hesitated, then decided to just say it. I care about you, Lena. Not because of what you accomplish or how many problems you solve, just you. Her eyes widened slightly. Adrian? You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. They stood there in her living room, close enough that Adrian could count the flecks of gold in her eyes, and for a moment he thought maybe she was going to say something. But then her phone rang, shattering the moment. She stepped back, checked the screen, frowned. It's my boss. I should take it, she answered, walking toward the bedroom for privacy. Adrian stood there feeling like he'd just jumped off a cliff without checking if there was water below. When she came back 5 minutes later, she looked different, alert, energized. That was Richard, from corporate. He wants to meet Monday to discuss the program. That's good, right? I don't know. Maybe. She was already moving, pulling up files on her laptop. I need to prepare. If there's any chance to change their minds. Lena, she looked up. Take a breath. I can't. This might be my only shot. Adrian recognized that look, the one that said she was about to dive headfirst into work mode and forget everything else existed, including him, including what he'd just said. Okay, he said quietly. I'll let you work. Adrian, wait! But he was already at the door. Good luck Monday. He left before she could respond, and driving home he tried not to feel like he'd just made a massive mistake. Monday came and went. Adrian didn't hear from Lena. Tuesday too. By Wednesday he'd convinced himself that he'd pushed too hard, said too much, ruined whatever fragile thing had been building between them. Then, Thursday evening, she showed up at his apartment. Adrian opened the door to find her standing there looking nervous and determined in equal measure. Can we talk? She asked. Yeah, of course. Come in. He stepped aside, then realized Mia was in the living room. Bug, can you go play in your room for a bit? But I'm building. Please. Mia looked between them, clearly sensing something important, then gathered her Legos and disappeared down the hall. Adrian heard her door close with exaggerated care. Sit, he said to Lena. You want water or... I got the funding. Adrian stopped. What? The meeting Monday, I presented a revised plan. Smaller scope, more measurable outcomes, partnership with the school district to share costs. They approved it. She was talking fast, words tumbling over each other. It's not everything we wanted, but it's enough. We can still help kids, still make a difference. Lena, that's amazing. I know. And I wanted to tell you right away, but things were crazy. And then I realized I'd been so focused on the program that I never... She took a breath. I never responded to what you said Saturday. Adrian's stomach tightened. You don't have to eat. Yes, I do. She stepped closer. You said you care about me. Yeah. Just me. Not what I accomplish. That's what I said. No one's ever... She stopped, started again. People like what I can do for them. My work, my skills, my ability to solve their problems. But you see me. The messy, imperfect version that doesn't have all the answers, and you stick around anyway. Adrian didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain that the messy, imperfect version was the one he liked best. I care about you too, Lena said quietly, and that terrifies me. Why? Because I'm not good at this. Letting people in, being vulnerable, all the things that come easy to other people. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm probably going to mess this up. Mess what up? This, us, whatever this is. Adrian's heart was doing something complicated in his chest. There's an us? I think so. I mean, if you want there to be. He crossed the room, stood in front of her. Lena, I've wanted there to be an us since you built that blanket fort with my daughter. She laughed, shaky and surprised. That's very specific. It's true. What if I'm terrible at relationships? Then we'll figure it out together. What if I work too much and forget to call and prioritize projects over people? Then I'll remind you there's more to life than work. What if, He kissed her, soft and careful, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She didn't. She leaned into him, hands coming up to grip his shirt, and kissed him back with an intensity that made his head spin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena looked dazed. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, let's try this. Us. Adrian smiled. Yeah. Yeah, but full disclosure, I'm probably going to panic and try to run at some point. I'll chase you. Adrian, I mean it. You don't scare me, Lena. None of it does. She looked at him like she was trying to figure out if he was real. Then she kissed him again, and they were still kissing when Mia's door opened and small footsteps padded down the hall. Are you guys done? Oh! Mia stopped in the doorway, eyes wide. Lena pulled back, flushed. Adrian cleared his throat. Hey, Bug. Are you kissing Lena? Yes? Mia considered this, then grinned so wide Adrian could see the gap from her latest lost tooth. Does this mean she's your girlfriend? Adrian looked at Lena. Lena looked at him. They hadn't actually discussed that part. Maybe we should, Lena started. Yes, Adrian said. If she wants to be. I want to be, Lena said quickly. Then to Mia, is that okay with you? Mia launched herself at Lena, wrapping her arms around her waist. Yes. Can you stay for dinner? Can we build another fort? Can we… Whoa, Bug. One thing at a time. Adrian gently extracted his daughter. How about we start with dinner? Pizza, Mia declared. We had pizza last week. So, pizza is perfect. Lena laughed, and the sound filled the apartment with something warm and right. I could go for pizza. They ordered in and ate sitting on the living room floor because Mia insisted they needed a picnic. And later, after Mia had gone to bed and Adrian and Lena were cleaning up, she caught his hand. Thank you, she said. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I was being difficult. You weren't difficult. I was. I pushed you away. And I pulled you back. That's what people do when they care about each other. Lena studied their joined hands. I'm going to need you to be patient with me. This, being with someone, being part of something, it's new territory. I've got all the patience in the world. Even when I get obsessed with work, even then. Even when I forget to text back for 3 days, I'll just show up with bagels again. She smiled. You're ridiculous. You like it. I really do. They stood in his small kitchen, hands linked, and Adrian felt something settle in his chest, something that felt like coming home. Stay tonight? He asked. Just stay. We can watch a movie or just talk or… I'd like that. So they did. They curled up on his worn couch, some old movie playing that neither of them watched, and talked until Lena fell asleep against his shoulder. Adrian stayed awake a while longer, listening to her breathe, feeling the weight of her trust, and thinking about how sometimes the best things in life were the ones you didn't plan for, the ones that just happened when you stopped trying to control everything and let people in. The next few weeks were a learning curve for both of them. Lena had been right about the work thing. She'd get so absorbed in a project that hours would pass without her realizing it. More than once, Adrian showed up at her office at 8 p.m. to find her still at her desk, surprised that she'd missed dinner. But she was trying, making an effort to set boundaries, to remember there was life outside of work. And on the nights when she couldn't quite manage it, Adrian would bring her food and sit with her while she worked, and that felt like progress too. Mia adjusted to the change faster than either adult did. To her, Lena had always been part of their lives. Now she just was officially. She'd introduce Lena as my dad's girlfriend with obvious pride, and Lena would flush slightly but never correct her. One Saturday afternoon, about 2 months after they'd made things official, Adrian came home from running errands to find Lena and Mia in the middle of what appeared to be an elaborate science experiment involving baking soda, vinegar, and food coloring. Do I want to know? He asked from the doorway. Volcano, Mia announced. Lena's helping me with my science project. It's not due for 3 weeks. She wanted to get a head start, Lena said, shooting him an amused look. Who am I to discourage academic enthusiasm? Fair point. He watched them work together, Mia explaining her vision while Lena helped execute it. and felt that same warm tightness in his chest he'd been feeling more and more often lately. Like his life had expanded somehow to include this person who'd shown up unexpectedly and fit so perfectly he couldn't remember what it felt like before she was there. Later, after the volcano had erupted successfully 3 times, and Mia was in her room writing up her observations, Lena helped Adrian clean up the kitchen. "You're good with her," he said. "She's easy to be good with. Still, you didn't have to help with the project." "I wanted to." Lena rinsed a measuring cup. "Is it weird that I like hanging out with a 7-year-old? "No, it's one of the things I love about you." The words were out before Adrian could stop them. They hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. He froze, rag in hand, waiting for Lena's response. She set down the measuring cup very carefully, turned to face him. "Say that again," she said quietly. "Which part?" "You know which part." Adrian set down his own dish towel. "I love that you like hanging out with my daughter. I love that you care about kids who struggle the way you did. I love that you work too hard and forget to eat and show up here at midnight when you can't sleep." He took a breath. "I love you, Lena. All of it." She stared at him, eyes wide. "Adrian, you don't have to say it back. I needed you to know. She stopped, started again. "I don't know if I know how to love someone." "I think you do. You just don't trust it yet." "What if I'm bad at it?" "Then we'll figure it out, together." Lena crossed the kitchen, stood in front of him. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is. Maybe we just complicate it." She reached up, cupped his face with both hands. "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of how much I feel for you. Of how much I want this to work. Of—" Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Of losing it." "You won't." "You can't promise that." "You're right. I can't." He covered her hands with his. "But I can promise I'm not going anywhere. That I'm all in, for as long as you want me." "What if that's forever?" "Even better." She kissed him then, slow and deep, and Adrian tasted salt and realized she was crying. When they broke apart, he wiped her tears with his thumb. "I think I love you too," she whispered. I'm not good at saying it." "You just did." "I'm serious. I'm going to be bad at this." "Then be bad at it. I don't care." She laughed, wet and shaky. "You're supposed to want someone who has their act together." "I want you. That's all." They stood in his kitchen, holding each other, and Adrian thought about how far they'd both come. How Lena had gone from being the driven, isolated woman trapped in a burning building to someone who stood in his apartment crying happy tears and admitting she was scared. How he'd gone from thinking he needed to handle everything alone to letting someone in completely. "Daddy?" Mia's voice came from the hallway. "Are you guys kissing again?" They broke apart, both laughing. "No," Adrian called back. "Yes, you were. I can tell by your voice. Go finish your observations, Bug." "Okay, but you guys are gross." Lena buried her face in Adrian's chest, shoulders shaking with laughter. "Your daughter is very perceptive. Tell me about it." They finished cleaning up, and later that night after Mia was asleep, they sat on the couch, not really watching TV and just being together. Lena's head on Adrian's shoulder, his arm around her, both of them quiet and comfortable. "I talked to my therapist about you," Lena said suddenly. Adrian hadn't known she was seeing a therapist. "Yeah?" "Yeah, started going a couple months ago. Figured I should probably deal with some of my control issues." She traced patterns on his arm absently. "She said it's good I found someone who doesn't try to fix me." "You don't need fixing." "I know. That's her point. You just accept me. All the messy parts." "Those are my favorite parts." She tilted her head to look at him. "You're weird." "You love it." "I really do." They fell quiet again, and Adrian felt something settle in him. Something that felt like peace, like after years of running on empty, trying to be everything for everyone, he'd finally found someone who saw him and stayed anyway. Someone who made his small life feel infinitely bigger just by being part of it. "Thank you," Lena said softly. "For what?" "For running into that building, for seeing me, for not giving up." She paused. "For everything." Adrian kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made." "Running into a fire?" "Finding you in it." She smiled against his shoulder, and they stayed like that until late, wrapped up in each other, neither wanting to move. Because this quiet moment in his apartment with the woman he loved and his daughter sleeping down the hall, this was everything he'd never known he needed, and he wasn't letting it go. Things were good for a while. Better than good. Adrian would wake up some mornings and have to remind himself this was real, that Lena was actually in his life, that she stayed even when things got messy, that she chose them day after day. It felt fragile in a way he couldn't quite shake, like something this good couldn't possibly last. But it did last. Through Mia's school concerts where Lena showed up with flowers. Through late nights when Adrian had to work overtime and Lena picked Mia up from after-school care without being asked. Through weekends where they do nothing but exist together, cooking meals that were slightly burnt and watching movies Mia picked that were always about talking animals. It felt like building something. Slowly, carefully, one day at a time. Then Lena's phone rang on a Tuesday evening while they were making dinner, and everything shifted. Adrian was chopping vegetables while Mia set the table and Lena stirred pasta sauce on the stove. The call came through on Lena's watch, and she glanced at it, frowned. "I should take this," she said, stepping into the hallway. Adrian exchanged a look with Mia, who shrugged, and went back to arranging forks with intense concentration. Through the wall, he could hear Lena's voice, professional, clipped, but with an undercurrent of something else. Excitement, maybe. When she came back 5 minutes later, her face was unreadable. "Everything okay?" Adrian asked. "Yeah, that was—" She stopped, seemed to recalibrate. "Can we talk later? After Mia goes to bed?" "Sure." But the rest of dinner felt off. Lena was distracted, answering Mia's questions with half her attention somewhere else. Adrian tried not to let worry creep in, tried to tell himself it was just work stuff, but the tight feeling in his chest said otherwise. After they'd gotten Mia bathed and into bed, a process that took longer than usual because she was in one of her chatty moods and wanted to tell them everything she'd learned about the solar system, Adrian and Lena finally sat down in the living room. "So," he said, "what's going on?" Lena pulled her feet up under her on the couch. A gesture Adrian had learned meant she was nervous. That call was from a headhunter, someone I worked with in Seattle. "Okay, there's a position opening up. Head of product design at a major firm. It's exactly the kind of role I've been working toward my whole career." Adrian felt something cold start to spread through his chest. "Where?" "San Francisco." There it was. The thing he'd been afraid of since this started. The reminder that Lena was talented and driven and destined for bigger things than a mid-sized tech company in a city that barely showed up on maps. "That's great," he said, and almost meant it. "You should go for it." Lena looked at him sharply. "I haven't decided anything yet." "But you're considering it." "I'd be stupid not to consider it. It's triple my current salary, full creative control, equity in the company. Then you should do it." "Adrian, I'm serious. This is what you've been working for, right? The next level?" "Yes, but—" She stopped, frustrated. "Can you not do that?" "Do what?" "Be supportive when you're actually upset." "I'm not upset." "You're clenching your jaw so hard I can see it from here." Adrian consciously relaxed his face. "I just want what's best for you." "And you think what's best for me is moving across the country?" "I think what's best for you is doing what makes you happy." Lena stood abruptly, pacing. "This isn't fair." "What isn't?" "You're supposed to ask me to stay. You're supposed to tell me I'm crazy for even considering it. Instead, you're just being understanding, and it's making me feel worse. Would you rather I be selfish?" "Maybe." They stared at each other across the small living room, and Adrian felt the fragile thing he'd been protecting start to crack. "What do you want me to say, Lena?" "I don't know." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Tell me what you're actually thinking." Adrian took a breath. "I'm thinking that I knew this was coming eventually, that someone like you was never going to stay in a place like this forever, that I should have protected myself better, but I didn't, because I'm an idiot who fell in love with someone completely out of my league. You're not. I'm not out of your league." "Yes, you are. You're brilliant and talented and going places. I fix air conditioning units. This was always going to have an expiration date." "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true." Lena crossed the room, grabbed his face with both hands. "Listen to me. You are not less than me because of what you do for work. You're smart and kind and the best father I've ever seen. You're—" Her voice cracked. "You're everything I didn't know I needed." "Then stay." The words hung between them. Adrian hadn't meant to say them, had promised himself he wouldn't ask, wouldn't make this harder than it already was. But they were out now, raw and honest. "Adrian, stay. Here. With us. With me. I can't just— It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I've spent my entire life working toward opportunities like this. Because if I turn it down, I'll always wonder, what if? Because—" She pulled back, dropping her hands. "Because I don't know if I can be what you need me to be." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not the settling down type. I'm not domestic. I don't know how to be a step-parent or a wife or whatever this is supposed to turn into. I never asked you to be anything except yourself. But eventually you will. You'll want more than I can give. You'll want someone who can be a real partner to you and a real mother to Mia, and I don't know if that's me." Adrian felt something sharp twist in his chest. "Is that what you think? That I'm just using you as a replacement mom for Mia?" "No, because that's not what this is. I love you. Not because you're good with my daughter, though you are. Not because you fill some role I need filled. I love you because you're you, messy and driven and terrible at accepting help. All of it." Lena's eyes were bright with tears. "What if that's not enough?" "For who? For me? Because from where I'm standing, you're more than enough. For Mia." There it was, the real fear underneath everything else. "Mia adores you," Adrian said softly. "Now. But what about in 5 years when she realizes I have no idea what I'm doing? When I screw up because I don't have the instincts other people have? When she needs someone who can actually be a mother and I—" She stopped, wiping angrily at her eyes. "I can't be that. I don't know how." Adrian stood, cross to her. "Lena, you're already that. You help with homework and build forts and show up to school events. You listen to her stories and care about her struggles. That's what being a parent is. It's not some magical instinct. It's just showing up. But what if I stop showing up? What if I get consumed by work again and forget? What if I hurt her? Then we'll deal with it, together. That's what people do." Lena looked at him, and Adrian could see her warring with herself, wanting to believe him, but too scared to trust it. "I need time," she said finally, "to think about the offer, to figure out what I want." "Okay." "Okay?" "Yeah. Take the time you need." She searched his face. "You're really okay with that?" "No," Adrian wanted to say. "I'm terrified you're going to choose the job and leave and take half my heart with you." But what he said was, "I want you to be sure, whatever you decide." Lena nodded slowly, and they stood there in his living room not touching, the distance between them suddenly feeling much wider than a few feet. "I should go," she said quietly. "You don't have to." "I think I do. I need to process this." Adrian walked her to the door, and when she kissed him goodbye, it felt like an apology. Or maybe a goodbye. He couldn't tell which, and that scared him more than anything. After she left, he sat on the couch staring at nothing until well past midnight, trying not to think about what it would feel like when she was gone. The next week was strange. Lena still came around, but less frequently, and when she did, there was a careful distance to her that hadn't been there before, like she was already pulling away, protecting herself from the inevitable. Adrian tried to give her space while also showing her what she'd be giving up, tried to make every moment count without being obvious about it. But it was exhausting, this performance of normalcy when everything felt like it was crumbling. Mia noticed, of course. "Is Lena still mad?" she asked one night. "She's not mad, Bug." "Then why doesn't she stay for breakfast anymore?" "Because she's leaving," Adrian thought. "Because I'm going to lose her, and I don't know how to stop it." "She's busy with work stuff," he said instead. "She's always busy with work stuff. But before she'd stay anyway." Adrian didn't have a good answer for that, so he just pulled his daughter close and held on tight, wondering how he was going to explain it when Lena actually left. A week and a half after the phone call, Lena texted asking if they could talk. Adrian's stomach dropped, but he agreed to meet her at the park, where this had all started, where she'd first offered to help Mia, where everything had shifted without either of them realizing it. She was already there when he arrived, sitting on the same bench they'd shared months ago. She looked tired. "Hey," he said, sitting down but leaving space between them. "Hey." She stared at her hands. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "Okay." "About the job. About us. About what I want my life to look like." Adrian's heart was pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. And I realized something. I've spent my entire life chasing the next thing, the next achievement, the next level, the next proof that I'm good enough. I thought that's what would make me happy. She finally looked at him. "But the happiest I've been in years is sitting on your couch watching terrible movies with you and Mia." Adrian felt something loosen in his chest. "Yeah?" "Yeah. And that terrifies me because it means everything I thought I wanted might not actually be what I need. So what are you saying?" Lena took a shaky breath. "I'm saying I called the headhunter this morning and told them I'm not interested in the position." Adrian stared at her. "You... what?" "I'm staying. Here. With you." "Lena." "Let me finish." She turned to face him fully. "I'm staying, but I need you to understand that I'm going to screw this up sometimes. I'm going to get obsessed with projects and forget to call. I'm going to struggle with the parent stuff because I don't have a roadmap for it. I'm going to want to run when things get hard because that's what I do." "Okay?" "Okay? Yeah, I can work with that." Adrian reached for her hand. "As long as you promise to come back when you run." "I promise." She laced her fingers through his. "I'm all in, Adrian. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm in." He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. "That's all I need." They sat there for a while, holding each other, and Adrian felt the fragile thing in his chest start to solidify into something stronger. Something that could weather uncertainty and fear and all the messy reality of two imperfect people trying to build a life together. "Mia's going to be so happy," he said eventually. Lena laughed wetly. "I already told her." "What? When?" "Yesterday. I needed to know..." She paused. "I needed to know she wanted me to stay too, before I made the decision. And she said, and I quote, 'Obviously you should stay. Who else is going to help me with science projects?'" Adrian laughed, the sound surprising him. "That's my kid. She also said she loves me, just said it, like it was the simplest thing in the world." "What did you say?" "I said I love her too, and I meant it." Lena looked up at him. "I love both of you, so much it scares me." "Good scared or bad scared?" "Good scared. The kind that means it matters." They walked back to Adrian's apartment hand in hand, and when they got there, Mia was waiting with a sign she'd made that said, "Lena stays," in purple crayon, with about 40 exclamation points. "You knew?" Adrian asked his daughter. "Lena told me it was a secret until she told you." Mia threw her arms around Lena's waist. "But now it's not a secret, so I made a sign." "I see that," Lena said, laughing. "It's perfect." That night they celebrated with ice cream for dinner, Mia's idea, which Lena supported enthusiastically, much to Adrian's mock disapproval. And later, after Mia had gone to bed sugar high and happy, Adrian and Lena lay on the couch in the dark, talking about the future. "I want to do something with the outreach program," Lena said. "Expand it beyond Helix, maybe start a nonprofit. Actually make this a real thing. That's a big undertaking." "I know, but I think I can do it. With help. I'll help however I can." "I'm counting on it." She traced patterns on his chest. "Also, I think I should probably move. My apartment is on the other side of town, and it doesn't make sense to keep paying rent when I'm here most of the time anyway." Adrian's breath caught. "You want to move in?" "Eventually, not right away. I don't want to rush things. But maybe in a few months, if that's okay with you and Mia?" "I think Mia would move you in tomorrow if she could." "And you?" "I'd help her pack your stuff." Lena smiled in the darkness. "Okay then. We'll take it slow. Figure it out as we go." "Sounds perfect." They fell quiet, and Adrian listened to her breathe, felt the steady rise and fall of her chest against his side. This was real. She was staying. They were doing this. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For choosing us. For staying even though it's scary. Thank you for making it worth staying for." "Well, But life had a way of testing commitments, and theirs came sooner than either of them expected. It started small. Lena's nonprofit idea gained traction faster than anyone anticipated. Suddenly, she was in meetings with potential donors, writing grant proposals, building a board of directors. The work consumed her in that way Adrian recognized, the way that meant she forgot to eat and stayed up too late and pushed herself past reasonable limits. He tried to be supportive, tried to help where he could, but he also had his own job and his own responsibilities, and Mia, who needed consistent parenting even when the adults in her life were drowning in work. The cracks started showing about 2 months after Lena had turned down the San Francisco job. It was a Thursday evening, and Lena had promised to help Mia with a book report that was due the next day. But 6 o'clock came and went with no Lena. 7 o'clock, 8. Adrian called twice and got voicemail both times. By 8:30, Mia was in tears because she couldn't figure out how to structure her thoughts, and Adrian wasn't helpful because he didn't understand the assignment well enough to guide her. Lena finally showed up at 9:15, looking frazzled and apologetic. "I'm so sorry," she said, rushing in. "The meeting ran long and I lost track of time, and Mia, sweetie, I'm sorry, we can work on it now." But Mia just looked at her, hurt written all over her small face. "It's bedtime. I have to go to school tomorrow, and I didn't finish, and now I'm going to get in trouble." "We can explain to your teacher." "You promised." Mia's voice was small. "You said you'd help, and you didn't." "I know. I'm sorry. Something came up. Something always comes up with you." The words landed like a slap. Lena went very still, and Adrian watched her face do that thing where it shut down, where the walls went back up. "Mia," Adrian said carefully, "that's not fair." "Yes, it is. She's always working. She's never here anymore." "That's not true." "It is true." Mia was crying now, the kind of frustrated tears that came from exhaustion and disappointment. "You said you weren't going to leave, but you're leaving anyway. You're just doing it slow." Lena looked stricken. Mia, I'm not leaving." But Mia had already run to her room, slamming the door behind her. Adrian and Lena stood in the living room in the wake of it, the silence heavy. Adrian gestured toward Mia's room. "Yeah, go. I'll just go." Lena. But she was already gathering her bag, moving toward the door. Adrian wanted to stop her, wanted to tell her to stay so they could talk this through, but Mia needed him more right now. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. Lena nodded, but didn't look at him. And then she was gone, and Adrian was left to comfort his daughter, who'd just voiced the fear he'd been too scared to acknowledge himself. He found Mia curled up on her bed, face buried in her pillow. He sat down carefully on the edge. "Hey, Bug. I don't want to talk about it." "Okay. Can I just sit here?" She didn't answer, but she didn't tell him to leave either. After a few minutes of silence, she rolled over. "Is she really leaving?" Mia asked, voice muffled. "No, she's just busy right now." "That's what you said about Mom, that she was busy, but then she never came back." Adrian felt something crack in his chest. Mia had been too young to really remember her mother leaving, or so he'd thought. Apparently she remembered more than he'd realized. "Lena's not your mom," he said gently. "She's not going to disappear." "How do you know?" "Because she loves you. And people who love you don't just leave." Even as he said it, Adrian wondered if he believed it himself. If Lena's recent absence was just temporary busyness or the beginning of her pulling away, if they'd been fooling themselves thinking this could actually work. "I love her too," Mia whispered, "but I'm scared." "Me too, Bug. Me too." Adrian didn't call Lena the next day, partly because he was hurt and angry and needed space, partly because he didn't know what to say. The silence stretched between them like a wound neither of them knew how to treat. 3 days passed. Then 4. Adrian threw himself into work and parenting, trying not to think about the Lena-shaped hole in his routine, trying not to notice how Mia asked about her every night, and tried to hide her disappointment when Adrian said he didn't know when she'd be back. On the 5th day, Mark cornered him in the maintenance office. "Okay, what's going on with you?" "Nothing." "Cole, you've been walking around here like someone died. Talk to me." Adrian sighed, set down the wrench he'd been pretending to organize. "Lena and I don't know what we are." "You guys fighting?" Not exactly. She's been busy with the nonprofit thing, and she missed something with Mia, and it got messy, and now we're just not talking. Mark leaned against the workbench. You love her? Yeah? She love you? I think so, but I also think she doesn't know how to balance all of it. Work, us, being part of Mia's life. She's drowning, and I don't know how to help without making it worse. Have you tried talking to her? She's not answering. Have you tried showing up? Adrian looked at his boss. What? You showed up for her when she was trapped in a fire. Maybe show up for her now when she's trapped in her own head. That's different. Is it? Sounds to me like she needs saving either way. Just this time the fire's on the inside. Adrian thought about that for a long time after Mark left. Thought about how he'd been waiting for Lena to reach out first, to bridge the gap, to prove she wanted this enough to fight for it. But maybe that wasn't fair. Maybe she was waiting for the same thing from him. That evening, instead of going home, Adrian drove to Helix. It was past 7, but he'd bet money Lena was still there. He was right. Her car was in the lot, and when he made his way to the design lab, he could see her through the glass walls, hunched over her laptop with that intense focus that meant she'd forgotten the world existed. He knocked on the door frame. She looked up, startled, then something complicated crossed her face. Adrian, what are you doing here? Can we talk? She glanced at her laptop, then back at him, clearly torn. I'm in the middle of... Please. Something in his voice must have convinced her because she closed the laptop and stood. Okay, yeah, let me just... She grabbed her jacket and they walked in silence to the parking lot. It was cold, the kind of cold that came in October when the weather couldn't decide if it was still fall or already winter. Adrian shoved his hands in his pockets and tried to figure out where to start. I'm sorry, Lena said before he could speak. About Mia's book report. About disappearing. About all of it. Why did you? Disappear? Because I thought... She stopped, started again. Because Mia was right. I was leaving. Not physically, but I was checking out because it was easier than admitting I was failing at this. You're not failing. Yes, I am. I promised I'd be there for her and I forgot. I let work consume me the way it always does, and I hurt a kid who trusted me. Her voice broke. I hurt your daughter, Adrian. The one thing I swore I wouldn't do. So fix it. How? I don't know how to be what she needs, what you both need. By showing up, by trying, by not running away every time it gets hard. I'm scared I'm going to keep screwing up. You will. We both will. That's part of being human. Adrian took a step closer. But you don't get to decide you're too broken for this and walk away. You don't get to hurt people who love you because you're afraid of hurting them worse later. Lena wiped at her eyes. I don't know how to fix this. Start by coming home. Adrian, come home. Talk to Mia. Apologize. Show her you're not disappearing. He paused. Show me you're not disappearing. She looked at him, and Adrian could see her warring with herself, wanting to believe him, but terrified to trust it. Finally, she nodded. Okay, yeah, let's go. Vijik. Mia was in her room doing homework when they got to the apartment. She looked up when Lena knocked on the doorframe, and her whole face did something complicated, hope and hurt and uncertainty all at once. Hi, Lena said softly. Hi. Can I come in? Mia shrugged, which Lena took as permission. She sat on the floor near Mia's bed, giving the girl space but making herself vulnerable by lowering herself to her level. I'm sorry, Lena said. About the book report. About not being here. About making you feel like I was leaving. Are you? Mia asked, voice small. No, but I understand why you thought so. I got so caught up in work that I forgot what really matters, and that's not okay. You said you wouldn't leave. I know I did, and I meant it. I still mean it. But I messed up and I'm sorry. Mia studied her for a long moment. Daddy says people who love you don't leave. He's right. Do you love me? Yes, Lena said without hesitation. So much. And I know I haven't been very good at showing it lately, but that doesn't change the fact that it's true. Then why did you forget about me? The question was so honest, so direct, that Adrian saw it hit Lena like a physical blow. Because sometimes I get scared that I'm not good enough at this. Lena said quietly. At being part of a family. So I hide and work because that's something I know how to do. But that's not fair to you, and it's not fair to your dad. And I'm going to try really hard to do better. What if you mess up again? I probably will, but I'll keep trying anyway. If you'll let me. Mia thought about that. Then, in the way of children who forgave more easily than adults, she climbed off her bed and hugged Lena tight. Okay, she said, but next time you have to actually help with my homework. Lena laughed, wet and relieved. Deal. Adrian watched from the doorway as they held each other and felt something in his chest settle. This wasn't perfect. They'd stumbled and hurt each other and would probably do it again. But they were here. They were trying. And maybe that was enough. Later, after Mia had gone to bed clutching Lena's promise to take her to the Science Museum on Saturday, Adrian and Lena sat on the couch trying to find their way back to each other. I talked to my therapist about this, Lena said, about why I keep running. What'd she say? That I'm terrified of being abandoned, so I abandon first. That I'd rather be the one who leaves than the one who gets left. She pulled her knees up to her chest. And she's right. My whole life, I've been one step ahead of rejection. But with you and Mia, I can't outrun this. I don't want to. Then stop running. I'm trying. I swear I'm trying. Adrian pulled her close, and she let herself be held in a way she hadn't at the beginning. Let herself be vulnerable without trying to protect herself from the potential hurt. I'm going to scale back the nonprofit stuff, she said into his shoulder. Find a balance that doesn't mean sacrificing everything else. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because I can't keep choosing work over you guys. That's not the life I want. What life do you want? Lena pulled back to look at him. This one. With you. With Mia. Building something that matters not because it looks impressive on paper, but because it makes me happy. Adrian kissed her, slow and deep, and tasted salt from tears he wasn't sure were hers or his or both. Move in with us, he said when they broke apart. What? I know we said we'd wait, but I don't want to wait anymore. Move in. Be here. All the way. Adrian, I love you. Mia loves you. You're already part of this family. Make it official. Lena searched his face, and Adrian could see her making the calculation, weighing the risk against the potential reward, deciding whether to trust this or protect herself. Finally, she smiled. Okay. Okay? Okay. Let's do it. Let's be a family. And just like that, the fragile thing Adrian had been protecting became something solid and real and permanent. Something that could weather storms and mistakes and all the messy reality of imperfect people choosing each other anyway. Something worth fighting for. Lena moved in on a Saturday in November, and it wasn't smooth or romantic or anything like the movies made it seem. The moving truck was late. Half her furniture didn't fit through the apartment door, and Mia got so excited she spilled an entire gallon of paint they'd bought to redo the spare room as Lena's office. By the time everything was inside, crammed into corners and stacked in ways that would need rearranging, they were all exhausted and covered in paint splatters. Welcome home, Adrian said, surveying the chaos. Lena laughed, a real one that came from somewhere deep. It's perfect. And somehow, despite the mess, it was. The adjustment took time. Lena had to learn that Adrian organized the kitchen in a specific way and got quietly stressed when things were moved. Adrian had to learn that Lena needed an hour alone every morning to mentally prepare for the day, or she'd be off kilter until noon. Mia had to learn that having Lena around full-time meant rules about bedtime actually got enforced consistently, which she enjoyed significantly less than the novelty had initially suggested. They stumbled, argued about small things that stood in for bigger fears, dishes in the sink, work schedules, whose turn it was to handle Mia's latest school project. But they figured it out, one small compromise at a time, building something that looked nothing like either of them had imagined, but felt more real because of it. 3 months after Lena moved in, the crisis Adrian had been unconsciously bracing for finally came. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Helix's fire alarm went off again, a real emergency this time, a chemical leak in one of the labs on the second floor. The building evacuated smoothly, everyone accounted for, no injuries, except Mia had been there. She'd come to visit after school let out early, had been with Lena in her office when the alarm sounded. Adrian's radio had crackled with the evacuation order while he was working in the basement, and his first coherent thought was Mia. He'd sprinted up the stairs, pushing against the flow of people, heart hammering so hard he thought it might crack a rib. But when he hit the lobby, scanning frantically for his daughter's face, he couldn't find her. Mark grabbed his arm. "Cole, everyone's out. The system shows clear. Where's Mia?" "What?" "My daughter. She was here. Where is she?" Mark's face went pale as he pulled up the evacuation log on his tablet, scrolling fast. Adrian didn't wait. He turned back toward the stairwell. "Adrian, stop! You can't—" But Adrian was already moving, the same instinct that had sent him back for Lena now driving him toward his daughter. He hit the 4th floor at a full run, shouting Mia's name, checking offices, panic clawing at his throat. Then he heard it. A voice. Calm and steady, and coming from the west wing. Lena. He rounded the corner and found them. Lena crouched in front of Mia near the emergency exit, hands on the girl's shoulders, talking in a low, soothing tone. Mia was crying, shaking, clearly terrified. "I've got you," Lena was saying. "We're going to walk out together, okay? Just like we practiced. Remember the breathing? In through your nose." She looked up and saw Adrian, and relief flooded her face. "Adrian, thank God." He dropped to his knees, pulling Mia into his arms. She was sobbing now, clutching his shirt. "The alarm, it was so loud, I couldn't remember." "Shh, it's okay. I've got you." Lena stood, giving them space but staying close. She got overwhelmed by the noise. Froze. I stayed with her until she could move. Adrian looked up at her, at this woman who'd stayed when every instinct probably screamed at her to get herself to safety, who'd put his daughter first without hesitation. "Thank you," he said, the words completely inadequate. "Always," Lena said simply. They made their way out together, Mia between them, holding both their hands. And when they reached the parking lot and the paramedics checked Mia over and declared her fine, just scared, Adrian sat on the curb and tried to process what had just happened. Lena sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "She okay?" she asked quietly. "Yeah, thanks to you." "I wasn't going to leave her." "I know." Adrian turned to look at her. "You know what I realized up there when I couldn't find her?" "What?" "That you're not just my partner. You're her parent too. Full stop. Not stepmom or dad's girlfriend or whatever label people want to use. You're her parent." Lena's eyes filled. "Adrian, I mean it. You showed up for her when it mattered. You kept her safe. You were exactly what she needed." He took her hand. "You were exactly what we both needed." She leaned her head on his shoulder and they sat there while the fire department cleared the building and people started filtering back to work. Mia eventually wandered over and climbed into Lena's lap like it was the most natural thing in the world, and Lena held her close, and Adrian thought about how far they'd all come, about how he'd been so convinced he had to do everything alone, had to be enough by himself, had to protect Mia from anyone who might leave. But the truth was, letting Lena in hadn't made them weaker. It had made them stronger, had given Mia another person to count on, another source of love and stability and support, had given Adrian a partner in every sense of the word. That night, after Mia had finally fallen asleep in her own bed, a process that took longer than usual because she needed both of them close, Adrian and Lena stood in the kitchen doing dishes and not talking about what had happened because neither of them needed to. "I want to marry you," Adrian said suddenly. Lena nearly dropped the plate she was holding. "What?" "Not now, not yet. But someday. I want to marry you. Make this official in every way possible." She set the plate down carefully, turned to face him. Are you serious?" "Completely. We've barely been living together 4 months." "I know. That's why I said someday, not tomorrow." He dried his hands on a towel. "I just wanted you to know that I'm in this. All the way. For the long haul." Lena studied his face, and Adrian waited, not nervous exactly, but aware that this was another moment where she could run, where the fear could win. Instead, she smiled. "Okay." "Okay?" "Okay, someday. When we're both ready, ask me again." Adrian kissed her, and it tasted like promise and possibility, and all the messy, imperfect beauty of building a life with someone who saw you completely and chose you anyway. 6 months later, Lena's nonprofit officially launched. It was small, scrappy, funded mostly through grants and donations, and Lena's relentless determination. But it was real. And it was helping kids like Mia, kids like Lena had been, get the support they needed to thrive. Adrian stood in the back of the community center where they were hosting the launch event, watching Lena speak to a room full of parents and educators and donors, watching her be confident and passionate and completely herself. Mia sat in the front row, beaming with pride, and Adrian felt his chest tighten with something that felt too big for his body. This was what mattered, not achievements or titles or proving anything to anyone. Just showing up for the people you loved and building something that made the world a little bit better. After the event, after the last donor had left and Mia had fallen asleep in the car on the way home, Adrian carried his daughter up to her room while Lena followed quietly. They tucked her in together, a routine they'd perfected over months of practice, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. "You know what's funny?" Lena whispered. "What?" "A year ago, I would have said my biggest achievement was that product launch, or getting hired at Helix, or any of the professional milestones I'd been chasing. And now? Now?" She looked at Mia, then at Adrian. "Now I think it's this. Us. Building something real with people who matter." Adrian pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "Same." They stood there in the quiet of Mia's room, and Adrian thought about the fire alarm that had started all of this. About running into danger to save someone he didn't know. About how that single decision had led to everything that came after. The reading sessions, the late-night conversations, the stumbling towards something neither of them had been looking for but both desperately needed. He'd been so afraid of not being enough, of failing his daughter, of never finding someone who could understand their life, of being trapped in a small existence that never grew beyond just getting by. But Lena had shown him that strength wasn't about doing everything alone, that love wasn't about being perfect, that family wasn't defined by biology or tradition, but by showing up, day after day, for the people who mattered. And in showing him that, she'd shown him something else too, that the bravest thing you could do wasn't running into a burning building. It was letting someone run in after you, letting them see you at your most vulnerable, most scared, most broken, and trusting that they'd stay anyway. Because real love, the kind that lasted, the kind that mattered, wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about choosing each other in the small daily ways, in remembered coffee orders and homework help and staying when things got hard. It was about building something together that was stronger than what either person could build alone. Adrian looked at Lena, at this woman who'd crashed into his life and changed everything, and felt nothing but gratitude. For her courage in staying, for her willingness to be imperfect, for choosing them even when it scared her, for teaching him that sometimes the best things in life came from taking the leap anyway. "I love you," he said quietly. "I love you too," Lena replied. "Both of you. So much." And in that moment, standing in his daughter's doorway with the woman he loved, Adrian Cole finally understood what it meant to be enough. Not because he'd achieved something or proven himself or become someone different, but because he'd learned to let people in, to build connections instead of walls, to trust that he deserved the love he'd found. That was the real rescue. Not the fire or the alarm or the dramatic moment, but the slow, steady work of two broken people learning to be whole together. And that was more than enough. It was everything.